This is the Safemaker 1 push dagger, manufactured by Cold Steel. Daggers like this are sometimes called punch daggers, so punch dagger or push dagger. The blade steel is Japanese stainless steel, AUS 8. The length of the actual edge, it is double-edged, as you can see, with a fuller that runs down the center line. The length of the actual edges, alright, is 4 inches. And you can see it's basically a one-piece construction with the handle just coated with some textured Kraton, which does provide an excellent grip. Alright, now let me give you just a closer look at the blade itself. You see on one side, you see how that is, it's almost, it's flat or maybe a little convexed, the grind. Right, and then on the back, it's actually flat, but it's not completely flat. It's actually slightly hollowed. All right, so kind of like a chisel grind. Now, what that does, it actually makes a very specific type of wound channel. All right, let me just demonstrate what I mean. All right, now if I fold this down, you'll see it makes a kind of a triangular wound channel. All right, that one's a little lopsided. All right. It makes kind of a triangle shaped wound, right, which they say is much more difficult for a wound of that shape to actually close up by itself. All right, so that is they do intentionally shape the blade that way, and it is actually very nasty. The blade steel is AUS 8, which is a less expensive steel, but it's perfectly adequate for this type of device, which I would say, it's definitely meant as a weapon. The grip, this Kraton coated tang gives an excellent grip. I mean, and it can be held this way, or if you like, that way. I feel that this way is a little stronger, but I feel that this way gives a little more control. Just my opinion. Now, this part is actually very well designed. It's not too thick, because if you look at a human hand, there's not really much room at all between the fingers when you make a fist. So it is correct to have this be fairly thin. All right, let me see that part right there, fairly thin. Okay, on some other daggers like this, and even on brass knuckles, if they make the part between your fingers too big, it spreads out your fingers and weakens them. All right, so this is very well designed, I would say. Now, the weight on this is about 3.7 ounces. All right, so it's actually very light for a fixed blade, especially considering it's a 4-inch blade. Let me just show you the sheath real quick. It is the Securex sheath. You see it has the clip there, and then it has eyelets and slots all around if you wanted to lash it, I don't know, as a boot knife or something. Right, and it it locks into the sheath. Locks in very firmly, you heard that. Retains it. Right, deployment. You do have to pull it out, decisively. Alright, so that's the sheath that it comes with. Alright, now let's discuss push daggers. What they're good for, what they're not good for. Alright, let's start with the drawbacks. Alright, because I don't want to sugarcoat it. There are some drawbacks. The first one is that the design of this, it just announces itself as a weapon. Okay, so if you have this, if you're found with this, people are going to tend to assume that you might have been thinking in terms of getting into a fight using a lethal weapon. Right, so there's going to be that stigma attached to it. The second possible drawback would be the legal prohibitions in different areas. There might be some cities, some states, some countries that have a specific prohibition against this type of design. You're going to have to look that up for your local area. And there are also a lot of places that do not allow a double-edged blade. So even if they don't have anything against a push dagger, they might consider this a double-edged dagger, and so they might ban it on those grounds. So you have to be aware. Of what your area allows. All right, now let's talk about the possible advantages of this design. Well, there are several. First of all, when you combine this with boxing type training, in other words, understanding how to throw a jab and how to throw an uppercut, this can be absolutely devastating. And obviously, you should never use something like this unless you would be willing to use a gun in the same situation, because it can be just as serious, both legally and in terms of this could actually, it's like shooting someone. If you hit them in the right place, it's like shooting someone. All right? But having said that, it's absolutely devastating. I know people who are hunters, they hunt deer, and they've actually tested out things like this on the carcass of the deer, and the thing just goes straight through the rib cage. And if that was a human, it would puncture the lung, essentially. The way that I would utilize this, it's utilized with jabs and footwork, meaning, you're trying to stay away from the guy who's attacking you. So you're popping out quick jabs, trying to disable his hand so that he cannot hold, assuming he has a weapon, you're trying to make it so he can no longer hold his weapon, and you're trying to keep your distance, okay? So you're popping out like modified boxing jabs with this. The other main technique is, of course, the uppercut. And that comes into play because, if you feel that you need a weapon like this, the threat to you is probably a huge threat. In other words, it's probably someone that is far more physically superior to you. So inevitably, if you use this, you'd probably be punching up. Okay, we're talking, some 6'4" monster is trying to mangle you. And that's why the uppercuts, that's where uppercuts come into play, because most likely you'd be punching up or even into the body straight or around the side or even way around to the kidney, kind of a hooking uppercut. Well, it wouldn't be up, but a hook around to the kidney. All right, so if you're trained in those boxing techniques, jabs, hooks, and uppercuts, this combined with those techniques, that would be absolutely devastating. Another benefit of push daggers is that I've heard people often, if this is on your belt, people often do not realize that it's an actual knife because they're so used to seeing a knife with a conventional handle, especially if you carry a lot of other tools on your belt, like if you carry a multi-tool and some other tools, a flashlight. This just kind of blends in, and often people will assume that it's just some sort of work tool, right? And now I'm not saying you should count on that, but several people have told me that that's exactly what has happened. They carried this around and it was not recognized. This is the Boker TUF knife. The Boker TUF knife. And you can see they're both about the same blade length, about 4 inches. Alright. But you see how much longer the handle is. And that's the third main benefit. Look how much more compact this is to carry, and they both give you the same length blade. So that's probably that's one of the huge benefits, similar to a folder. A lot of people will carry a folder instead of this because it folds up. Same idea with this, far more compact, but it gives you the same amount of blade to work with. All right. And if you're looking for a budget option, you see on the right, that is the United Magnum push dagger. It's far less expensive. It is lesser quality. The edge is not nearly as sharp. But as far as the thrusting, pure thrusting techniques, you know, it could serve. And as you can see, it is overall just a little bit shorter and not as good fit and finish. All right, but people always request a budget option, so there it is, the United Magnum. If you're not ready to shell out, I believe the Safe Maker goes for around 70. Okay, so it is kind of expensive. So there's your budget alternative. All right, so there you have it, the Safe Maker 1. In summary, you need to be aware of the laws regarding something like this, and you need to be aware of the possible social stigma, the social consequences of being seen or found with something like this. As far as the benefits, absolutely devastating when combined with basic boxing techniques. It is a lot more compact and easy to carry than a conventional handled fixed blade, and oftentimes people will not realize that it is in fact a knife, especially if you carry other work tools on your belt. Alright, hope you enjoyed getting a closer look and seeing an overview and discussion of this push dagger from Cold Steel. Stay tuned for many more videos. I'm out of here, dudes.